Hello everybody! Last lesson we talked about copying and moving objects by using the copy and move commands and by appending the copied objects to a list inside of a for loop. This lesson we're going to be doing something very similar, except instead of just moving the objects after we copy them, we're going to rotate them. In front of us we have a yellow sun. Well, kind of. As you can see, our sun only has one ray. This, of course, is not going to be a very bright sun with this single ray. So what we are going to do is use a for loop, a list, the copy command, and the rotate command to give the sun more rays. Let's look at the code. All we have here is a circle named sun and a box named ray. Both of these are colored yellow and then displayed using the show command. So what we are going to do is create 18 more copies of this ray, rotate them around the sun, and append them to a list which contains all of the sun's rays. Then we're going to make a union between the list of rays and the sun and display it as one object. Let's start by making an empty list here called sun rays, using an empty set of square brackets. For the time being, I'm going to erase these two color commands because I will color our new sun at the end once it has its rays. Now let's write the code to begin our for loop by typing in for I in range 18, then a colon, and go to the next line. Remember, there must be two spaces between the line of code that declares the loop and the body of the loop. Notice that because I want to make 18 more sun rays, I put 18 into the range command. Now, in the body of the loop, I'm going to create copies of the ray, rotate them, and append them to the list. I'll make a new object called copied ray and make it a copy of ray using the copy command. Now what I have to do is rotate the copied ray around the sun. When thinking about how to rotate this ray, we must consider two things. The first is what point we are rotating the object around. The second is how many degrees we're going to rotate our object. Our sun is centered here at the origin of the system of coordinates, or the point 0, 0. So what I need to do is rotate our copied rays around this point. Now we must think about how many degrees we're rotating our ray. We are making 18 rays, and we want them to be spaced evenly from one another. So what we need to do is figure out what that interval is between them. Then each time the loop is repeated, have the copied ray be rotated that degree interval around the origin the correct number of times so that each ray is one interval ahead of the previous one. Let me type in the code that we want to use and then I'll explain how it does this. We know about the rotate command that when we don't specify a point or an axis to rotate our object around, that it rotates around the origin, 0, 0. So this code here, by default, will rotate our ray around the origin. Now let's look at the second parameter. What this does is find the degree increment that we will want our rays to have between one another, being 360, the number of degrees in a full rotation, divided by 18, the number of rays that we want. Then it multiplies this interval by the loop's index value, I, which as we know is a variable that increments from 0 up until the number specified in the range command. What this does is rotate each copied ray one extra increment each time the loop is repeated. Now let's append each of these copied rays to the list that we made earlier, named sun rays, using the append command. Now the body of our loop should be working correctly, copying the main ray, rotating each copied array around the origin at fixed intervals from one another, and appending each of these to a list. All we need to do now is create a union between our list of rays and our sun, color them, and display them. So let's make a union called full sun using the union command outside of the for loop. and it will be the union of sun and sun rays. Now let's color this new object full sun yellow using the color command. And let's also put full sun into the show command. Now we can run our program, and if all went well, we will see our sun surrounded by 18 rays as we had expected. So let's run it. There we go. We have our nice, bright, full yellow sun surrounded by 18 yellow rays. To sum up what we've learned today, remember once again how useful for loops and lists are. Remember the copy and rotate commands can be used inside of for loops with lists in order to create and manipulate sets of objects. Be creative and see what you can make now that you know how to do this.